Cosplay! Yes, you heard it right. The nerd hobby you've probably heard about in the news or on social media. I have been cosplaying for over 10 years and been to different events both within and outside Sweden. With all of these years, I have noticed differences about how cosplay is done in different cultures. Therefore, I would like to share my experience how cosplay is done in Japan compared to the Nordic countries.
From here on, I will be using the term nerd as in a fan and consumer of certain fictional media, and photoshoot as in modeling shoot of a cosplayer. Cosplay is a part of Japanese culture. Believe it or not, the first ever documented cosplay appeared in America in 1939. It was a couple of science authors who made two costumes inspired from a movie and wore it to the world's first science fiction convention in New York. However, the term cosplay can first be seen in a Japanese article written by Nobuyuki Takahashi, who attended a World Science Fiction Convention in Los Angeles, 1984. Since then, the term came to be the definition of the hobby henceforth. In the Nordic countries, cosplay started to show up around the 21st century, when various nerd events started to arrange cosplay competitions. One very noticeable cosplay rule in Japan is that you cannot wear a cosplay in public or when taking public transportations. In many places, you need to have permission from the owner of the location if you want to have a photo shoot in the public place. This rule seems to only apply in Japan. Meanwhile, you are free to wear cosplay wherever you want at most public places outside Japan. That also applies to the Nordic countries because of the right of public access, a law that allows the public to access most private-owned places without permission. There are some similar rights in other European countries, therefore the public are freer to enter private-owned properties without permission. In Japan, especially in the cities, there are something called Cosplay Studio, which are photo studios specifically designed for cosplayers to take pictures in. The studios contain special designed and styled rooms, which is suitable for cosplayers to take photos in. However, cosplay studios have rules as well. The most common rule is to not arrive in cosplay, because you are required to change in the studio's changing room. Other general rules, such as be mindful of others, don't damage any properties, wear clean shoes, etc. applies as well. Some studios have more stricter rules than others. Therefore, make sure to look up the rules beforehand. Some studios want you to book a time slot beforehand, and some even offer cosplay costumes and camera equipment to rent, as well photographers to hire for a few hours. In the Nordic countries, the access to cosplay studio is close to zero, because cosplay is not as big as comparing to Japan. There are photo studios, however, they are mostly aimed for wedding or family shooting. Instead, many cosplayers and photographers use the nature and places of what they have. This is to be called location shoot, which the cosplayer and the cosplayer's team decide a location to take pictures at. Some places might need a special permission to take photos at, such as castles or cafes. As long as you are mindful of your surrounding and don't damage any properties, you are free to go. There are no rules regarding commuting in cosplay. The only thing you might get is curious people looking at you or asking you why you are dressed up. Lastly, if you decide to cosplay at home or make a home studio, no rules are applied to that. Only your creativity sets the limit. In Japan, there are many different nerd events such as Comic-Con, which allow cosplayers. Even cosplay-focused events are held every now and then, such as Acosta. Every event has their own set of rules, and some events are even stricter than others. Very similar to photo studios in Japan. Same as previous, you cannot arrive in cosplay to the event. Some events require the cosplayer to purchase a certain cosplay ticket to be allowed to cosplay at the event. The ticket is to be allowed in the changing room at the event. Some events don't allow certain characters to be displayed because of copyright issues, and some will not accept props or weapons to be made of certain materials. In the Nordic countries, there are no specific event just for cosplay. However, nerd events are more open to have their attendees to wear cosplay. Some events have a security check at the entrance, where they will look if the attendees does not carry any dangerous items. This includes cosplay props as well, as long as the item follows the country's law. Some events even have certain space for cosplayers to change or leave belongings. However, there is no requirement to buy any certain tickets or arrive at the event without wearing the cosplay. Besides specific events, other places, such as amusement parks or festivals, don't have specific rules for cosplaying, if nothing else is mentioned. Make sure to double check the rules if you are entering a theme park such as Disneyland, which might have rules about it. In Japan, the most common focus in cosplay competitions is how the participant portray the character. Many photo contests are held, where the audience are the jury. I took some time on Google search and could only find 2 competitions that are more focused on craftsmanship. One with the rule of at least 50% must be handmade. The other one is the World Cosplay Summit Championship, the world's largest international cosplay competition in Nagoya. Nerd events in the Nordic countries often offer competitions. If you decide to compete with the cosplay, most competitions require the contestant to have done most of the costume, accessories, and weapon by themselves. Items such as underwear and shoes are exceptions. However, this rule varies on the contest and what category you sign up for. Some events have different categories depending on if you're a beginner or if you have some experience. The focus is on crafting and how well you solve certain solutions to make the character come to life. Other bigger competitions are in a tournament style, where you must win a smaller competition to climb higher up to bigger competitions, or international ones such as European Cosplay Gathering or World Cosplay Summit. There are other competitions as well, such as photo contest, making cosplay from garbage, or sketch performance when the cosplayer roleplays on stage. Finally, where do you find the materials for this? Starting off with Japan. There are specific stores which sells cosplay materials such as wigs, fabric, parts and complete costumes as well. Contact lenses, makeup, jewelry, etc. can also be found at other physical crafting stores. The variety of fabric and regular crafting stores are many, with a huge number of supplies of every big and small items. If the item you're searching for is not in a physical store, online stores might most likely have it. If you cannot find any pre-made costumes or you don't want to make one by yourself, there are also companies specialized in making custom-made costumes from requests. Having access to different ways to gain cosplay within Japan is not a problem. In the Nordic countries, the variety of physical cosplay stores are close to none. There are some party and masquerade-focused stores in the bigger cities. However, finding complete cosplay costumes, wigs and lenses are very limited and often falls into the category of party items, which does not always hold up the quality you are striving for. There are varieties of regular fabric and crafting stores. However, the stock can be very limited if you're not lucky. If you're lucky, some stores have small cosplay section with common cosplay crafting materials. Otherwise, many crafting supplies often comes from online stores within the country. If you cannot find the right material, many times the cosplayer either use a similar item or they make it from scratch by themselves. If you cannot make your own cosplay, the most common way to gain a full costume or a part of a cosplay are to commission another costume creator. Some cosplay creators take crafting requests as a side business. All these stated are ways to get materials within said country. The most common way to get materials is through online shopping overseas. There are many online shops, most of them based in China, which are selling mass-produced complete costumes. Nowadays, 3D printing is also getting more popular. You might wonder why I chose cosplay in the Nordic countries instead of America, Europe or the West in general. The answer might be different from mouth to mouth. However, what I have gathered all these years in this hobby is that Americans have it easier to buy materials within America. Meanwhile, in the Nordic countries, we must import materials sometimes from America, from the UK or Germany, etc. I cannot count on my 2 hands how often I see social media posts of creators giving tips and tricks of different stores and online shops to only be in America with no international shipping, or the shipping itself is 3 times more expensive than the item. In many cases, it ends up with we must make it from scratch ourselves, and in the end, it takes more time and money. To sum up, cosplay is a hobby in many countries, including Japan and the Nordic countries. Cosplay is a part of the Japanese culture, and therefore Japan has its rules and regulation over where you are allowed and what you can cosplay. Meanwhile, there are other limitations outside Japan. I have cosplayed for over 10 years in both Sweden and in Japan, and there are a lot I could talk about. However, I'll leave that for another time. Lastly, I want to mention Keigo Mark's book called Cosplay Made in Scandinavia, which is a book containing interviews, information, and a huge gallery from cosplayers around the Nordic country. Thanks for watching and happy cosplaying!